This is Boxing Talk 8576, man. I'm gonna come at you with I'm gonna start a series of a new thing I'm gonna start putting on my boxing channel. I'm gonna start talking about past fights, past matchups. Some of them may be controversial, some of it just great fights. And you can go back and I just refer to them. You can just go back and watch them yourselves. This is mainly for, like, some of the younger fans, boxing fans out there, that only came into boxing maybe the last 10 years or so, and they have not really seen a lot of these fights of the 90s or the 80s or something like that. So now that they got YouTube, they can go back and look at old fights. Unlike in my day, I couldn't go back. We didn't have YouTube, so you had to catch the fight on that day. Maybe you'll get a replay, but you had to catch the fight on that day if you had hopes of seeing it. But the fight I want to talk about is a 1990 matchup between Julio Caesar Chavez and Meldrick Taylor. This fight was in 1990. I remember looking at this fight on HBO, and this was a great matchup, man. Meldrick Taylor, he had won the IBF title from James Buddy McGirt, who was a pretty good fighter himself. Chavez, he was like 68-0, some crazy number, and he was a WBC lightweight champion, and he was regarded as the best little man. Even though you had De La Hoya was coming up. You had De La Hoya, no, De La Hoya fought at the 1992 Olympics, so De La Hoya wasn't a pro yet. But you had people like, you had Pernell Whitaker was out there, Camacho, he was getting a little older, Ray Leonard was still coming back and forth. So, people, was given the title of the best little man, anything, south of the heavyweight division. They was giving it to Chavez, and Chavez was a guy that just was a rugged Mexican fighter, pretty tough guy, man. He had no amateur background, so he did fight a lot of fights. So at this point, I think he was like 27 or 26 or some young number like that, and he already had 66 fights, over 60 fights. And I guess, because he had no amateur background, that was some of his part of his amateur fights were his professional fights, giving him a lot of reps, getting him a lot of fights in. So when he ran into Meldrick Taylor was a guy that did have an extensive amateur background. He had won gold, in the 1984 Olympics, that team that had Whitaker, that had Holyfield, and those guys, the Spinks, no, not, was it the Spinks brothers? No, I know it was Holyfield was on that team. And Meldrick Taylor was regarded as a great young fighter at the time. I think he was like 26 at the time too himself, and he had fast hands, can punch, can move around, and a lot of people, because of his style, gave him a chance to upset Chavez, because Chavez never fought a fighter like quite like Meldrick Taylor, and Meldrick Taylor really never fought a fighter quite like Chavez either, in the regard that Chavez, now, I know a lot of people talk about, end fighters and people that can go to the body. But go back and look at Chavez in his younger career when he was coming up. This guy went to the body. I'm talking about, it was an art form of going to the body. He did not smother himself. He was at the right distance. He threw perfect body shots. And I remember looking at the fight, man. I wasn't a huge boxing fan back then. I would look at boxing if it came on HBO or Showtime. I would look at it, but I was really a football and basketball guy back then. 1990. I was really a football basketball guy. I think I was maybe like 14, maybe. So I would look at boxing, with my uncles every now and then when they have it on TV, or if I see a Mike Tyson fight. I remember looking at Mike Tyson versus Buster Douglas. But this was the same year that happened. But so I really wasn't a hardcore boxing fan. But I remember looking at the fight, and I remember Meldrick Taylor was winning. He was winning like easy, at least from round 1 to like round 9. He was really like rather easy. So I was coming back and forth in the room, watching the fight, because I was like, man, this dude this dude that they talking about Chavez. They talking about Chavez so good, but this ain't. It don't look like it's any competition. It like the Meldrick Taylor is dominating him. And then I remember coming back in the room as I was going in and out, and I was looking at round 10. I started seeing Meldrick Taylor. His face was all messed up, man. I'm like, dude, why this dude winning the fight, but his face is messed up. And I remember the commentators, and I believe it was Larry Merchant, and it was Jim Lampley, and they was talking about, man, how his face was looking, but he was winning the fight. So I was like, okay, he's winning the fight, but his face looking all messed up. So, because my thing was in boxing was the guy that's getting beat up should be losing the fight, not the guy that face don't. And Chavez didn't have a mark on his face for all the punches he was taking. He didn't have a mark on his face. The dude had a crazy chin, but he didn't have a mark on his face. And I'm like, man, okay, Meldrick Taylor, he winning the fight. So I remember like at probably like round 11, I think, Chavez had a really, really good round 11. He almost, kind of got Meldrick Taylor out of there in round 11. But then when round 12 came along, it was like Meldrick Taylor was just trying to hang on. And I was like, remember saying to myself, like, man, if he can just hang on, the dude gonna win the fight. And man, he got dropped, but he got up, and Richard Steele was counting, and he stopped the fight because I guess he did ask Meldrick Taylor, would he like to continue to fight? Meldrick Taylor looked over to his corner. And what a referee is trained, they are trained to see if you're loosened, if you are, have your faculties enough to fight, to continue fighting. If they don't see that you have it, they're gonna stop the fight. And no matter what time, they shouldn't worry about the time that they stop the fight. If they don't feel like you can go on, they should stop the fight. But my thinking was, I was angry because it was like 2 or 3 seconds left, and Chavez was like in the neutral corner, and he would have took him at least 2-3 seconds just to walk over there to Meldrick Taylor. But being a referee, he didn't know about the time, so he didn't want to risk this guy getting hurt, because you can get hurt. When you get knocked down or taking a lot of punishment throughout the fight, all you do is take one more punch, and then that one more punch can be enough to put you over the top and, put you in bad situation, bad danger. So I was mad. And it's been the controversy wasn't that he got knocked down. The controversy was that people thought, including myself, that Richard Steele stopped the fight too late. But as I gotten older, now I realize that it's not his job to look at the time, and see how much time is left in the round. It's his job to tend to the fighter and see what's going on. But I remember Meldrick Taylor, after that, he was never the same fighter after that. I know that he had some really bad complications after that fight. One of the doctors that examined him said he had facial fractures, and he was urinating pure blood. And that now was due to the body work that Chavez had. He had tremendous body work, man, like crazy body work. And anyway, I heard a story that he had knocked down Oscar when Oscar was coming up in the ranks, and Oscar was sparring with Chavez. I heard that he hurt Oscar to the body real bad. But nevertheless, yeah, man, he was never the same, man. He went on, he had an up and down career after that, Meldrick Taylor, and he was a promising young fighter before that loss and that that fight, the damage that fight did to him. He lost to Terry Noyes in a knockout. He was getting knocked out a lot after that, man. He just was not the same fighter. And Chavez, he would go on to have another controversial fight, which was a good performance by another one of my favorite fighters was Pernell Whitaker, Sweet Pea. They fought. Him and Chavez had a fight, which he clearly dominated the fight. Now, if you're gonna talk about a robbery, that's a robbery. Like that was a robbery decision. So I don't like to call fights robberies, because when they go to the decision, it can go to anybody. You have your chance to incapacitate your opponent, or have somebody stop the fight. But I thought that was a robbery. But he would lose to a guy named Frankie Randall. And I remember looking at some, looking at the replay of that fight. I had heard about him losing, but then I looked at the replay of the fight, and I couldn't believe it, man. He dropped Chavez. Not only beat him, he dropped him. He kind of like put the ice on the cake when he dropped Chavez, and that was Chavez's first loss. And I think at that time Chavez was like 90 something and 0, like some crazy number. Like when people talk about, like I don't associate, undefeated Rocky Marciano 49 and 0 with the little guys, because he was a heavyweight. Heavyweights, I look at heavyweights a little bit different than I look at the smaller guys, because the heavyweight division is like the creme of the creme division. That's like, it's like when you coming up in weight. That's why when guys come up in weight, people are mesmerized that they can still win when they come up in weight. Is because they fighting bigger guys, and nobody is bigger than the heavyweight. So when you go undefeated as on top of the boxing landscape, to me that's like a different situation. So I know when people talk about Joe Kawasaki, I think Joe Kawasaki is like 45 and 0, and Mayweather is 49 and 0. And when people talk about they undefeated records, there's a couple other guys that went undefeated in their boxing careers, smaller guys. But you gotta put it in perspective. Chavez was like 90 something and 0, man. You know what I'm saying? That's when people lose perspective when they don't take in consideration that man was 90 something and 0. I don't care if he didn't retire undefeated. That man was 90 something and 0. That's impressive. He won 90 something straight fights, man. And people will say, well, he fought cab drivers and this and that. But anything can happen in the fight. You can get a cut that can stop the fight if you down on the cards. You can lose. Anything, you can get knocked out. Anything can happen in the fight, man, where you can lose a fight. Roy Jones lost a fight on a controversial, not controversial, but he lost a fight, when he hit Montel Griffin when Montel Griffin was down, which is against the rules. You can't hit nobody when they down. And they disqualify him, but they didn't disqualify Golovkin when he hit David Lemieux when he was on the ground. But that's a story for another day. But anything can happen in the fight, and this man still won 90 something fights, man. So, man, if you're a young boxing fan, go check out that fight. It's a really, really good fight, man. It's a fight that it just shows a lot in that fight, that Chavez was able to take all that punishment and still come through and land body shots on Meldrick Taylor. Meldrick Taylor, fast hands, fast feet. Just go watch the fight, man. It's a really good fight. But this is Boxing Talk 8576. I'm out.